the book that we're going to be reading here, the part of the Impact Driven Leader Book Club in June, as well. Have a podcast where I introduce the book and kind of recount my experiences with the book. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about the value of tracking. James has in the book, he puts together different habit trackers, different trackers. That was my highlighter. Didn't need it anyways. I'm not going to highlight anything. It's on the floor. It's all good. But James chronicles the value of habit tracking. I, discussed this in the podcast where I learned about this Earn Your X from podcast guest friend Mike Nielsen. He shared with me about Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld, he committed to writing a new joke every day. What he would do is he would have a calendar on the wall, on his desk, wherever he hung it. And each day that he wrote a new joke, he marked it with an X. And his desire was to keep that chain going. And I think as it was recorded that Jerry had over 2,000 days where he wrote a joke. And part of that habit is becoming someone who writes jokes, who creates content. But also, I believe this. When you desire and build that habit, you start being aware, knowing that I need to do it tomorrow. Well, I look at that the same as growth, the same as building momentum. If I'm actively doing it, and if I go through the ebbs and flows of life, if I continue to do it, I will regain it. Case in point for me, I read different books every morning. Some days I learn more than others. Some days are just maybe a rehash. Some days are just a taking in information. But I know this, as long as I stay with it and tracking it, and if I identify what I did at some point in time, I'm going to look back and say, wow, that really paid huge dividends. It really impacted me. I think back about one of the books that I really enjoyed reading, The Daily Drucker by, it was kind of a compilation of all of Peter Drucker's good works, letters, articles and papers and so forth. And at one point he made the mention, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. I believe the same way with habits. This is my thought of the day to leave you with, to share another thought about the only way to regain momentum is to track the actions that got you there in the first place. Well, a caveat, okay? The only way to regain momentum is to track the actions that got you going in the first place. But the caveat is what got you here won't get you there. However, if we identify the habits that got us here, it's easier to correct, realign the process that will get us there. If we have no idea what got us here, how could we ever put something together to get us there? I shared a couple weeks ago, a couple podcasts ago, maybe it's all a blur in my mind, the idea of sink or swim. And if we rely on people to swim in a sink or swim situation, we have no idea what process they use to swim. They just figured it out on their own. They just kind of started flying around and off they were going. So oftentimes there's people that sink, there's some swim. But without a process, without understanding how we learned, what stages we took, we can't possibly go back and make adjustments. Same with our habits. If we're not looking at the habits we want to put in place to get us to a different spot, how can we ever adjust the habits to take us to a different destination? It's kind of like driving down the road. You're driving, not watching the GPS, not even put it in. You have no idea what you got. But if you put in the address and maybe make some adjustments and turns, you look down and maybe you're lost, but it'll redirect you to where you need to go. Tracking our habits, I believe, is much the same. Hope you got value from this today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for sharing, commenting,